More breaking news here tonight. After weeks of work by Metro Council and pressure from Nashvillians, for the first time ever, Nashville has some specific regulations aimed at data centers. Just in the last few minutes, we're talking as we're coming on the air here, they passed a comprehensive zoning bill that restricts data centers to only areas that are already zoned for heavy industrial use and also limits how close they can be to homes, schools, parks, and other areas of public interest. Many people were inspired to speak up after learning about plans to build a data center right next to the Nashville Zoo. DC Blox, which is the company behind that project, closed on the property last week. But Small says he still hasn't seen them file any new permits. If they file permits after tonight, they will now be subject to the new regulations, which would likely stop them from being able to build on the land.